Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Andy Cohen weighs in on Ruelas' comments about Margaret Joseph's son. I would go absolutely mental. Ruelas previously apologized for his comments, saying, "I know better not to bring someone's child up, and it is something I deeply regret. So I do want to apologize and acknowledge that I was wrong." Andy Cohen knows he wouldn't have been able to keep his cool over Ruelas' comments about Margaret Joseph's son. After the fractured friendship between his wife Teresa Giudice and Joseph's hit a breaking point on the season finale of Real Housewives of New Jersey on August 4th, he said, "I hope her FING son suffers the way I suffered, the way other people in our family suffered, dealing with a woman like that." Now, Cohen, 56, is sharing his thoughts on the headline-making comments during an appearance on the latest episode of Bitch Sesh, a Real Housewives breakdown. "My perspective on the Housewives has shifted a little bit since becoming a dad," he told hosts Casey Wilson and Danielle Schneider. "Just because I pay attention to different, I look at it a little differently." Cohen admitted that bringing up his children, son Ben, 5, and daughter Lucy, 2, would be a deal-breaker for him. "But man, let me tell you something," he explained. "If someone that I didn't care for invoked either of my children's names, I would go, as mellow yellow as I usually am. That is what it would take for me." Danielle Cabral's button is, "Don't talk about my husband's pecs," he added. "Mine would be, if you mention my children in an unfavorable way. Like, I would go absolutely mental. I assume that's just very common." On the Real Housewives of New Jersey finale, Ruelas and Giudice planned how to confront Joseph's after Ruelas alleged she lied about him calling her son at work to threaten him. This came after the friendship hit its breaking point when Giudice accused the designer of reaching out to Ruelas' ex and spreading lies on the internet. 2 days after the episode aired, Ruelas posted a lengthy statement on his Instagram stories to apologize for the hateful remarks directed at Joseph's son. "The finale was very tough for me to watch, and I wanted to address it with you all," he began in his post. "After watching the finale, I was disappointed in my actions in bringing up Margaret Joseph's son. The reason he was even brought up was because I have been dealing with being falsely accused of calling Margaret's son at work, which is simply not true. For the last year, Margaret kept putting this narrative out there that I called her son at work, and I have had to deal with it knowing I am being lied on," he claimed. "Still, I know better not to bring someone's child up, and it is something I deeply regret, so I do want to apologize and acknowledge that I was wrong." Ruelas continued to say that while he felt he was defending himself and his loved ones at the cast's Last Supper taping, he now realizes the impact of his reaction. "There's been a lot of toxicity on the show that has affected everyone on the show," he concluded. "We have been dealing with a lot of frustrating things behind the scenes, and it has been very hard for our entire family and my children, who have been really impacted by all that's happened at the hands of certain people. 2 wrongs don't make a right, and I deeply regret saying what I said." Andy Cohen has never been one to hold back. But when the conversation turned to Real Housewives of New Jersey and Ruelas' latest comments about Margaret Joseph's son, even he couldn't hide his shock. What started as another routine recap on Watch What Happens Live became a moment fans will be replaying for weeks, because this time Andy wasn't just moderating the drama. He was reacting to it like any parent would. The segment kicked off casually enough. Andy sat back in his chair, cards in hand, giving viewers that familiar half-grin that usually means he's ready to stir the pot. But when a caller brought up Louis' comments, remarks that fans have been dissecting non-stop on social media, the energy in the studio shifted. Andy's expression sharpened. He leaned in, and then he said the words everyone had been waiting for someone with power in the Bravo sphere to say. "I would go absolutely mental." It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't packaged in perfect Bravo speak. It was raw, visceral, and unmistakably personal. From that moment, Andy launched into what could only be described as a masterclass in controlled outrage. He didn't call names. He didn't escalate. But he did what he does best, called out the reality behind the reality TV moment. He began by laying out the simple truth Children, whether they're adults or minors, are supposed to be off-limits in Housewives disputes. Over the years, that line has been tiptoed around, blurred, and occasionally stomped on, but Bravo has generally tried to treat it as sacred. But Luis' dig at Margaret's son crossed a threshold that even longtime fans felt uncomfortable with. And clearly Andy agreed. He spoke from the perspective of both a parent and a producer. He admitted that hearing anyone bring his own son, Ben, into a housewife-level feud would set him off in a way few things could. "It's just not somewhere you go," he said. "It's not the arena for that. It's not the conversation." His tone wasn't angry. It was disappointed, incredulous. The kind of reaction that hits so much harder because it comes from someone who has seen it all. And make no mistake, Andy has seen it all. Over nearly 2 decades of Housewives shows, he's watched table flips, walkouts, marriages implode, friendships resurrect, and reunions turn into psychological warfare. But despite all of that, he made it clear that family, especially children, should remain untouched. He highlighted something viewers often forget. The cast members sign up for the exposure and the scrutiny, but their children don't. Margaret's son is a particularly private figure, someone who has deliberately stayed off camera. To weaponize that privacy, to invoke him in a storyline meant to wound his mother, that, Andy suggested, wasn't good Housewives TV. It was just cruel. Then Andy did what he does best. Zoomed out and examined why this moment felt so different. He noted that the Real Housewives of New Jersey cast is in one of the most fractured places it has ever been. Tensions aren't just high, they're calcified. Every interaction feels like it's dripping with years of resentment. Teresa and Margaret's feud alone could fill 10 seasons of storylines. And Luis, who has only grown more polarizing since joining the show, seems to have become a lightning rod for fan frustration. But this comment struck a nerve in the fandom that even seasoned viewers weren't prepared for. And that, Andy explained, is exactly why he reacted the way he did. Because even if the cast doesn't always check themselves, he has to. As executive producer, he's constantly balancing entertainment value with ethical boundaries. And he knows the audience well enough to recognize when something goes from messy to mean-spirited. He didn't outright condemn Luis. Andy rarely goes that far unless absolutely necessary. But he did describe the comment as bad form, unnecessary, and way over the line, phrases that, in Andy Cohen language, might as well be a siren. What made the moment even more gripping was how he addressed the ripple effect of a comment like that. He pointed out that Margaret, for all her sharp tongue and no-nonsense critiques, is fiercely protective of her family.